What's the strangest conversation you've accidentally eavesdropped on? At a Chinese restaurant, an old man says to his friend, "I'm telling you my balls swelled up like this." Then he holds his hands apart like he's holding a grapefruit. Me and some co-workers were eating lunch outside on a patio, and all of a sudden two guys walk by and one goes, "I was licking her butthole and forget I was allergic to peanuts, so I spent the night in a hospital." We started cracking up and the guy noticed and said, "What?" It happens. Killing time in Starbucks before my bus comes when two well-dressed businessmen walk in. "Hey, crazy day yesterday, huh? Haha, yeah. I didn't know you could train dogs to do that. It haunts me. I have so many questions that will never be answered. Ah yes, the old peanut butter trick, eh?" Didn't hear the full conversation, but I walked in on two employees at a convenience store with the conversation ending with the phrase, "And that's when we hit the clams." To college age dudes walking by me. "And that's why I'm going to hell." No, you're going to hell because of all that Rick you suck. That's true, I do suck a lot of Rick. Heard over a cube wall at work. You promised that we would get a divorce after you got your green card. I once sat on my balcony, 3rd floor, at 2 AM to listen to a guy, ground level, who discovered his girlfriend was cheating on him. 4th floor. He climbed a tree and saw her topless with a guy with her light on. I opened a beer and took a seat. You said you were studying. You don't study with your shirt off. I was eating beside two older gentlemen at a bar, and I hear one of them say something like, "That stupid cat follows me everywhere. I've told my granddaughter to keep it away from me, but everyone thinks it's funny. I can't get away from it." There's silence between the two, and then the second older man laughs. "You secretly love that little hairball, don't you?" The guy lets out a giant, irritated sigh and sullenly admits, "Yes." I was pulling up to an intersection with a bus stop right as the light turned green. I crept by the stop and all I heard was an old black dude say, "And that's how the motherfucker took my leg." I look out my passenger window to see him with a prosthetic in his hand, sitting in a wheelchair, facing the other people at the bus stop. I don't know what story they heard, but it was damned good. My neighbor's talking to a prostitute about paying the price of 1 hour, but she wanted double the pay cause there were two guys with her. She wanted 1 hour per person, and the guys wanted to pay 1 hour period. That's a tough debate. She's doing double the work, but then again it still is 1 hour. My downstairs neighbors were having a fight. I was listening to a woman yelling, "Did you frig her? Did you frig her?" over and over. It really got exciting when another woman answered, "No. No, I didn't." I was on the train listening to a woman yell on the phone that she wouldn't be able to make it to her dentist appointment because she had left her teeth at home. Was checking into a luxury hotel when I was younger, and the people in the next room were frickin' like animals. So I keyed a bit slower than I normally would have because I had never been in this situation and I was intrigued, and then in between grunts and moans she yells, "I bet your wife doesn't frick you like this." Probably goes on every day, but I never heard something like that before or since. Once listened to a story a woman was telling her friend sitting next to me in a cafe. She became suspicious of her husband cheating on her when she was helping him unpack from a business trip and noticed a weird white stain on his shirt. She told the whole story of her googling how to figure out what it was, which I think included using specific light and stuff. Never actually got to hear the ending though, unfortunately. Using a black light lets you see stains from human fluids. Life pro tip: don't do this in a hotel room that you want to sleep comfortably in. I overheard two guys on the subway in New York City discussing what was the perfect handgun caliber to whack someone. There was a small dude who was adamant that the best gun was a 9mm because that's what cops use. Then the big dude starts shaking his head negatively, goes on to give a small speech about anatomy and ballistics, then proceeds to state that a competent assassin would use a mere .22 handgun. Since it's hard to track, ammo is cheap and you can mag dump someone in the head without anyone knowing it's gunfire. I think those guys were on their way to the Hitman convention. I was once in a Starbucks in Boston and witnessed a breakup which was immediately followed a failed proposal attempt. It was the craziest thing. The dude was very into her and her body language did not reply in a copacetic manner. He confessed his love to her. She replied that it wasn't gonna work and she might need some time. He replied, "We have the rest of our lives to figure it out, so you have time there." He got down on and he pulled out a ring. She stood up and said, "This is what I am talking about. You don't listen." She asked him to stand up. He said with tears in his eyes, "Why? I am still waiting for an answer." She gathered her things, took left out the back. The man sat back down and finished his frappuccino while crying. I refer to the story as the saddest cold coffee beverage ever. A few kids were debating on what happened to the poop after you flushed it on the train. One believed it exploded on impact with the rails, another debated the possibility of it being shot out of the side like a cannon, and another knew it was used to fuel the train. Not something I heard, but what someone eavesdropped on me. I used to work at a restaurant, and every member of the kitchen staff was Indian, and didn't speak English very well. There was one white guy that worked there, and for whatever reason, they all called him Ding Ding. White guy was having a birthday party, and invited us all. One of the Indian guys, and myself were standing outside the restaurant smoking, and the Indian guy says to me, Indian accent, "Hey man, you going to Ding Ding party?" A guy walking by us stopped, and said, "I'm sorry, I just overheard you guys, and I have to know what a Ding Ding party is." I couldn't stop laughing, and eventually told him what it was. In the 90s when people used to use cordless phones, you could pick up phone calls on a scanner. This is how I found out our downstairs neighbor was cooking and selling large quantities of meth out of his apartment. My neighborhood was like Peyton Place. I listened for hours. Heard wives calling boy queens once hubby left house. Heard calls about picking up drugs. One lady telling another about her husband being so needy and she was leaving him. One woman telling another about her bedwetting 12-year-old, how she was diapering him at night and making him sleep in his sister crib. He was a good friend of my son, but never let on what was happening. Another that owed the IRS a ton of money and was on the phone constantly trying to negotiate with them. He had turned state evidence on a company and thought the Fed should give him a break. Just last week, I was in line for customer service at the grocery store with my girlfriend. Sketchy looking dude comes up to the woman in line behind us, says hi, and she says something to the effect of, "I don't think I should be talking to you right now. I don't even know where my daughter is." They started talking quieter and we couldn't make out all of what they were saying, but we at one point heard her say something along the lines of, "Why can't you just admit that she might be in Iowa?" Unfortunately our turn to get help came up, and we had to abandon the conversation. Wish we would have been able to hear more. That's a restraining order. He was a stalker or some other threatening figure. Daughter got a restraining order against him. He's not supposed to be trying to contact her, or talk to any of her family, etc. He's not supposed to be coming up to mom at grocery stores trying to talk to her. Mom is asking the stalker why can't he admit the daughter is actually in Iowa, presumably to get away from him and have a new life, and stop thinking that she's hiding out somewhere nearby he can still get to her. I was in line for a roller coaster years ago when I overheard a 12-year-old and her even younger sister talking to two nice strangers, all standing in line behind me. The 12-year-old was talking about how she lives on a farm with her grandparents, her little sister and her newborn kid. She goes on and on about her young kid, and how her grandparents homeschool her so she has time to her raise and take care of her kid and how her little sister is helping too. She goes on to describe how little and precious and sweet her kid is and how much she loves her. I spent the entire time in line stunned and speechless and impressed by how engaged and unbothered the two strangers were during the whole conversation, i.e. asking to see pictures, etc. It wasn't until we got to the front of the line that I realized she meant kid, as in a baby goat. That's all for today's video. Hope you guys liked it. If you liked the video, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, the best thing you can do is simply watch the videos, but if you really want to see the channel thrive, subscribe. like, comment, add to favorites, add to playlist, and share with friends. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Reddit and Insta. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you with tomorrow's upload.